A Republican representative was put on the spot after vowing to fight the woke.
What does woke mean?
Well, woke means, in this case in particular, politicizing sexuality, politicizing race, which is divisive for our country. It's dividing and detracting the interest of our military so that they are one big laboratory of social invention instead of focusing their efforts on being trained to fight and win wars.
That was Representative Jody Arrington being asked what woke is and hilariously flubbing the answer. That's not what woke is. That's not what woke means. They've completely redefined that word to mean basically stuff that they don't like. And of course, finally, somebody asked him, and it just happened to be a Fox News host, no less, which, hey, great. I'm glad that they did, even though it didn't really amount to anything because they just make up meanings. That's what they're doing. Woke is simply being aware of racial injustice. That's the original meaning, to be awake and aware of the systemic injustice. The right wing, of course, has taken this word and concept and twisted it into nonsense. Anything that they don't like. Look, the stuff that he's described as woke, it's not really happening. Okay? That's not what wokeness is. How are they politicizing race and sexuality? Things that, by the way, are being politicized right now by the right wing. Look, everything the left is doing right now is pushing back against a focused right-wing effort to erase transgender people from society, for example, and to push back against the rolling back of same-sex marriage, civil rights. They're pushed to end reproductive rights for women, trans men, and non-binary people. The left stands against all those things, right? Against rolling back freedoms, whereas the right wing is trying to curtail people's freedoms. That said, I've got more video of Arrington. It gets more absurd.
Woke is.
Well, wait a minute. Excuse me. Do you think the military is simply concerned about their social agenda, if you will, as opposed to defending our country? Is that what you're saying about the military?
You better believe it. They are absolutely distracted at best, if not divided within the Pentagon because of all these leftist ideological programs that have no business in our national defense and in our military. You can't look at, for example, hiring contractors to provide munitions and other important things for lethal power for the United States, where they're ordering climate impact as number one. Yes, it is out of control. Absolutely. There's a whole of government assault on oil and gas and our energy independence by this administration. Okay. I call that.
Congressman.
Oh, look at all these leftist ideological programs in the military. No, you know what the leftist view on the military is? That we should cut all Pentagon funding in half, at least. So that's the leftist position. Also, the leftist position is, hey, why don't we stop doing wars for, oil? That would be a great idea. But this guy's like, I can't believe the leftist position. Oh, choosing contractors based on climate. Okay, well, happens to be a reason for that. You do realize the U.S. military actually emits more carbon than about 140 different countries combined. Yeah. Entire nations do not put out as much carbon as the U.S. military. And that's just, using fuel. And since 2001, the military has actually been responsible for 77 to 80% of federal energy consumption. So, hey, if you're wondering, hey, who's using all the oil and gas here, all the energy? Well, it just happens to be that, giant military industrial complex. But of course, this guy instead thinks it's the wokers. Of course. Now, there's more. In 2019, a report released by Durham and Lancaster University found that the U.S. military is one of the largest climate polluters in history, consuming more liquid fuels and emitting more CO2 than most countries. This is the same military, by the way, that also admits, oh, that climate change thing that we massively contribute to? Yeah, it turns out it's also a national security issue. We got to do something about it. So, look, it kind of makes sense for them to try to reduce their carbon footprint. Now, I still go with the leftist idea of why don't we just cut the Pentagon budget in half and stop doing so many wars? And, also get rid of the defense contractors. That would be great. But let's also note that a lot of the wars have been fought recently over access to oil and natural resources. So it would make sense as a military to be more efficient with those resources. Kind of makes sense, right? It's logical. But doesn't make sense if you're paid by oil companies. That's right. Which, surprise, or not really, Jody Arrington happens to be one of the House of Representatives' top 20 recipients of donations from, you guessed it, the fossil fuel industry, oil and gas. In 2022, for example, he received $184,000. That's $184,696 specifically, according to Open Secrets, from the oil and gas industry. Just again, in one year. So that's a lot of money. And look, not the only year that he received donations. From his entire career, 2015 to now, currently, oil and gas has been his top donor, giving him $584,194 in campaign bribes. Weird. And so, well, you can see the result of that where he goes on TV and calls anything to try to, even the military, their efforts to try to reduce, their consumption of fossil fuels, for example. He goes on TV and calls that woke. So that's the reality of the situation. As usual with these corrupt morons, all you have to do is follow the money.